Welcome to Small Talks, where we have small talks about a big God. I'm Krystal. Let's talk. This is the third and final part of the devotional Choose to Remember. If you haven't heard part 1 or 2, you're going to want to go ahead and catch up. We've been talking about the importance of remembrance in the life of the believer. In part 1, we said that remembrance should encourage us to walk in obedience to God. In part 2, we said that remembrance should keep us humble. And lastly, remembering should produce faith. It should give us faith for our next season. We're going to look at Numbers chapter 13, verses 30 through 33. In this passage, we see that the children of Israel are about halfway to the promised land. God tells Moses to send 12 spies to check out the promised land. We're going to pick up and read their scouting report. We're going to start at verse 30, part B. Caleb, one of the spies, says, "Let's go at once to take the land," he said. "We can certainly conquer it." But the other men who had explored the land with him disagreed. "We can't go up against them. They are stronger than we are." So they spread this bad report about the land among the Israelites. "The land we traveled through and explored will devour anyone who goes to live there. All the people we saw were huge. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers." So after this report, the entire camp got angry and started complaining and really protesting against Moses and Aaron. They're like, "We've been duped. If we only would have died in Egypt." They got so fed up that they tried to appoint a new leader and head back to Egypt. Caleb and Joshua, they spoke up one last time. Numbers chapter 14, 8 through 9. And they said, "And if the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us safely into the land and give it to us. It is rich land flowing with milk and honey. Do not rebel against the Lord, and don't be afraid of the people of the land. They are only helpless prey to us. They have no protection, but the Lord is with us. Don't be afraid of them." Now, why were they so convinced that they would conquer these giants? I believe because they chose to remember. They chose to remember who God was and what he had done in the past. They had to. There's no way they could have had this much faith for their next season without remembering. Perhaps they remembered when they were leaving Egypt and the Egyptians were after them and God parted the Red Sea and swallowed up their enemy. I think that's why they were able to confidently say, "Those giants in Canaan, they are only helpless prey to us." Or maybe they remembered how the Lord had been with them as a cloud by day and fire by night, and how he dwelled with them in the tabernacle. And I think that's why they were able to confidently say that the Lord is with us. Perhaps they remembered when God provided all of their needs in the desert. He quenched their thirst by providing water from a rock, and he fed them manna and quail. Ultimately, they remembered that the same God that delivered them from slavery in Egypt and preserved them in the wilderness is the same God that will deliver them from the giants in the land of Canaan. I don't know what you're trusting God for in this season, what big giants you're facing, but I want to take you through a simple exercise. You can download this worksheet by clicking the link under the show notes, or you can take a sheet of paper and simply draw 4 boxes. In the last box, write down something you're trusting God to do in your life. In the 3 boxes above that last box, write down 3 ways God has displayed his character or displayed his wondrous works in your life in the past. This ought to be a visual display that the same God that showed up for you in those first 3 memories is the same God that is able to show up for you in whatever you're trusting God to do in that last box. Remembering ought to produce faith for our next season. I'm not sure how you need to live out this lifestyle of remembering. Maybe you need to figure out a way to capture those memories. You might choose to journal or create voice memos. Or maybe every time you meet with God, maybe you carve out about 5 minutes just to pause and remember. I encourage you to pray and ask God how you should respond. My prayer is that we will all choose to remember so that we can walk in obedience, humility, and in radical faith.
Thank you for listening to Small Talks Devotional Podcast. As always, please like, share, comment, and leave a review so that we can reach more people. Talk to you next time as we have small talks about a big God.